to continue. Also with pizza, so please do not disappear afterwards when we're all done here, because there will be nice things coming up, like drinks and pizza. But yes, thank you very much for coming tonight. We're very excited to meet you in person this time. And yeah, thanks for coming. And yeah, just a short intro from my side. So Naila and I are organizers tonight from Product Tank. Naila's on the technical side of things, managing our live stream tonight. So I will do a short intro of her as well. So Naila's been in product for about 7 years. She works at XING, and I have to check my notes. She's working in the sports betting area on the trading side.
That's right.
Got that correctly.
Hi, everyone.
Perfect. Yeah, so about me. So my name is Mona. I've been in product for about 4 years now, and I'm currently working at Bluecode, which is a mobile payment app and solution. So maybe if you're in Vienna, you would have heard about it while doing your grocery shopping. I hope so. If not, and you're interested, feel free to chat to me later about it. And yeah, Naila and I had to check actually this week. We've been doing product tech now for 2 years already. Yeah. So we started sort of in the midst of COVID in October 2020 with Johannes actually. More on that later. So yeah, we've had great speakers also for our online events, such as Johannes Pununu, Gibson Biddle from Netflix. We've had Teresa Torres online, and so Nacho is a great addition tonight. Very much looking forward to this. But yeah, before we start, maybe just a few words, as some of you may be new to Product Tank, on the event itself. So yeah, Product Tank, the organization behind Product Tank is actually Mindful Product, which is the world's largest community of product people in the world, and also organize the largest conferences in the world. 2 of them being their 2 flagship conferences in San Francisco and London, taking place annually each year. And also I have to mention they have really amazing content on their websites, which I also reach for on a daily, or maybe not daily, but definitely regular basis. They have great articles, videos from the conferences. They also have membership now, product training, you name it. Also, you can have a look at all the product tanks that took place during COVID, because mostly they took place online. So they have a YouTube channel where everything is documented. So yeah, make sure to check it out on mindtheproduct.com if you want to know more. And yeah, Product Tank, just in one sentence, how it came to life. So Martin Erickson basically brought the whole thing to life, I think in 2010 it was, with just like 25 people. I think they met at a pub in London. And now it grew to about 150,000 members actually, and over 200 cities worldwide. So welcome to this community that you are now part of, which is a really big one, very cool. And yes, also at this point, thank you very much to New Work, our partner and host this evening. Thanks so much for letting us see your amazing new offices, but also hosting this product tank. We're glad to see this. And now I will hand over to Johannes, who will say the words about New Work.
I always find it a bit awkward is in the mic and cannot enforce. I see that quick, yes. So I remember visiting Mindful Product in San Francisco 2019, which was awesome. We really did venue, really did with this great speaker event on the sport. I got a speaker at this, like you said, remote version of our Vienna in 2020, I guess. So even more, I'm very happy that we didn't have any event in person, because it just makes a whole lot of difference. Yeah, my name is Johannes. I'm working now in tech product management for about 15 years. Real estate, banking, payments, and now I'm in director product at XING. So I'm leading the product management, SEO, and also the MC design and review. May I ask how many of you actually do know New Work? Yeah, you guys at the back, come on. Okay. Which is fine because it's a B2B brand. It's our umbrella brand for the actual brands of the company. It's quite similar to when you actually compare it to Google and Alphabet. So this is a similarity. Of course, New Work is a now and I guess a bit better. now I quite it up.
So you see that's not your work sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So when it comes to the brands, I'm sure most of you know XING, a professional network, where we from the Benelux region, but there's also other brands within my that heard of. One of them is Move, like I said, with I'm very much brand being a part of. And our mission is to provide workplace insights to people so they can actually make the best decisions for their work life. And be it reviews, be it salary information, cultural information, so really finding out how it is to work at a company before you start your salary information that you should not have started with. So yeah, so it's really important to provide this transparent, very high quality, authentic reviews of people working there, so others can actually decide if it's a good place for them. Some of you might know Honeypot, which is a development community in the sidelines in the breakout. And then there are some other things, more things specific brands like marketing solutions or individual into selling the products, integrations with a community for expats around the world. So making sure they find a network and can connect in real life. And Screen, soon to be named, is a applicant tracking system. So it's going to develop into a fully fledged HR suite, also pretty interesting for the user head. When it comes to our location, you are all now in Vienna. It's awesome. But there are also other locations. So, for example, when it comes to Kunos, they're located across Vienna, Berlin, Hamburg, and also Porto. In Porto, there's a large part of our colleagues working in engineering. But yeah, when it comes to XING, they also have colleagues working in Hamburg. For example, Silver community, quite in Barcelona, so we're spread out across quite a couple of different. Okay. So whoever sent me that slide just added a couple of animations. I'm just trying to read through them and read through the actual content like that. Yeah, for the female ratio, for the female CEO, which is pretty cool because there was definitely a change about 60 nationalities. But it's really important to us is really not talking about that, but really actually empowering diversity, inclusion, and making sure that we have teams that are really inclusive, come from a lot of different different backgrounds. Also, people in my team, for example, backgrounds in tech, be it business, be it linguistics, really making sure we embed different broad viewpoints to the best of our knowledge to build out. Yeah, and we are currently hiring, and we're not very for some fancy recruitment picture whatsoever. But I myself, I'm actually working out with them for 6 years, and I find it's a really awesome company with a lot of smart and very kind people. But there are also other benefits like very flexible home office, organizers, digital bowling, remote policies, sabbaticals, many events there in parties, also which brings the restaurant vouchers. And without too much further ado, I'm going to hand over to Nacho for the main part of this meeting. Yeah.
Okay, so is this volume okay? Yes. Okay, so I will say I'm part of this diversity at XING because I'm actually located in Barcelona, but this was a very nice excuse them here to be able to know for beautiful offices to meet Johannes and the other colleagues that we have been working together for a while. So thanks for the invitation. And I would really like to talk with you for the topic I'm really passionate about, which is the role of product direction in team empowerment. But before jumping straight to it, I would like to start by telling you a personal story. A few years ago, I started looking for the tennis. And soon I realized that tennis is all about direction. You need to understand in a fraction of a second that this ball that is coming very fast at you will land somewhere, and you need to land in the right direction, position the ball in the right direction, to place your racket in the right angle, to deliver the ball to the other side, hopefully with a direction that is good enough to, let's say, hurt your opponent in a way that helps you win the point and win the match. And you can think, hey, what does that have to do with products? And to be honest, in the beginning of my career, I was pretty much focused on the delivery side of things. And if you can compare that to this tennis match that I was trying to play, I was basically trying to say, okay, how do I need to swing my body to put the ball in the other side of the field? But just as I heard that if you are only focusing on movements to deliver the ball to the other side, great balls will come to other places of the field and you will end up losing much. Many teams for many years have been focused on the delivery side of product development, which means that basically we have some ideas for features we want to build and we want to achieve some results. So we deliver the features, which is all about the agile movement and how we deliver faster and how we think about methodologies to actually put things in production, which is good, but many times what will happen is that those features will not have the results we expect if we are not doing more things. For example, like with this analogy, trying to understand where this ball will come at, how to discover the right ball that will land in the right place in order to run towards it and hit it and deliver it to the other side. Luckily, many teams in the last years, or maybe 10 years, last decade, have started improving the discovery practices. And the discovery practices are helping us understand what the opportunities we're trying to pursue, what's validate the right solution in order to deliver those results that will bring the right outcomes. Now, if you think about how this will play out in tennis match, that's quite nice so far. We have these balls and we understand where they're coming. We know that we need to pick them or deliver them in the right way. But there is actually something else that is in place here that you need to understand that you are playing a match with an opponent and with other teammates. So in order to hit the right balls and understand where to place them in the other side, you need to understand which opportunities or which balls you actually need to pursue and what's the direction you have to focus on to actually take your opponents. So going back to the product side of things, the role of product direction is actually trying to help us understand from our product vision which is the right problems and opportunities we need to pursue. And with those problems and opportunities, trying to validate what are the right solutions to discovery and then deliver them to achieve the right results. So in summary, the role of the direction phase is followed by a big problem. We work with the slides that should be set up. So the role of the direction phase is selecting the most important opportunities in the space that we are trying to fulfill. So basically, coming up from our product vision, we need to understand what's that opportunity space, select the most important ones, and understand what is the contribution of each of our opportunities to the vision we're trying to deliver. And finally, if we go back to these 3 steps, is what we need to do as product leaders to give the teams the right space for them to do the discovery and deliver and deliver the right results. So it's what we need to do first in order to set things up for success. So that would be clear enough. I would think that no one will argue against that. But unfortunately, this is something that is not happening in most companies. So we are working in this. I was saying many things are only focusing on the delivery side. So we're trying to help how we develop things faster, and we're handing over features to them, and they're delivering things. That's already bad enough. Some teams luckily are doing discovery, but many companies are not doing this direction phase. And it's only been saying this. Actually, I was surprised by Marty Kagan saying this a few years ago. And you may know Marty Kagan, probably arguably the most important product thinker alive, like he's the author of Inspire and Empower. So anyways, he meets regularly very important and good companies. And even though he is working with these very good product companies, he says that remarkably, most companies next don't even have a product strategy. Which is interesting because some they have that strategies. Is that there is no strategy. So a few years ago, put it my way, many years ago, I faced this problem. I was coming to the table as a product leader, and I was saying, hey, we need to deliver results, and I didn't even have my own product strategy. And so reflecting back on my experience, some years ago, I started trying to understand why this is happening, why many companies are not having a proper direction. That's but the way I find very useful to explain why this phenomenon is happening is using the shops to be done for society. I'm sure if you are familiar with shops to be done, it's a methodology for research and investigation. And one of the tools they have is what's called a forces diagram, which basically says that users or customers or people have an existing solution or an existing behavior, and in order to acquire or use a new solution, do a new behavior, have a new behavior, they would have some forces that move them toward this behavior. So some pains that push them to adopting, or some benefits from the solution that will pull them towards getting this solution. But there will be other forces that hinder these efforts or this progress and prevents them from adopting the research. So what we can say for this companies not having direction problem, and soon enough I realized that the push parts we all know. All product leaders and all product managers will, no one will say, no, we don't need a sales. No one will say, we don't need talks. So most of us are already familiar with this connection that makes it from the vision we are trying to achieve and the execution we are having. We might already have faced these teams working in different topics and very unrelated, preventing us from having impact. We may all have faced these wasted efforts that have building features that lead lower. So we all know that we need public business. So why are we not doing more public consumption? And I find out that there are two big topics, so two big reasons. The first one is clear enough, that is, we have tendency for practical work. So we don't create the space to do this more strategic thinking, strategic work that requires a lot of effort, but we always have this, you have this urgent buying production, new customer request. My boss asked me for a basic report of the testing. I don't know, even interviews for a new hire that you need to schedule your interview. So you constantly heal your time blockers for strategic topics of doing that. And I believe that with discipline and some coaching, this is maybe something easy to solve. But more importantly, the second big problem is that if you ask 10 different people what the strategy is and who needs to do it, you will probably get 3 different answers, or even some brand steps like me. So this lack of method, this lack of clarity on who needs to do the strategy is something that is preventing many companies from having a more clear product direction and a clear product strategy. So this is what I want to focus on today. Hopefully we can find some answers and I can give you, I would like to have a practical approach. So eventually my intention is to give you something practical that you can implement tomorrow in your company. Before jumping to that, a few words about myself. The first one is that I've been doing code for many years now, for more than 16 years in code management. At XING, currently located in Barcelona, Argentina, so I've been to the National University that but I work in many different companies in different continents, Iran, travel industry, gaming industry, very basic connection, by the way. The second thing I would like to say is that I really like what I call spreading the word, but actually is connecting with other product managers. I really have been helping the product community in different places. Now, this week, actually, I become a visionary coordinator for product teams in Europe. So I'm trying to help in different ways to make the community flourish. But I also like a lot of I interviewed other leaders about their strategic processes and strategic challenges. And enough, you can hear my episode with your friends, so you can explain how the strategy in Peru was built and all the challenges there. And the more formal side, I like to help product managers with the trainings. I do part of guest teacher in different institutes and universities. I do that myself in product.com. Last year, I launched a book called Product Direction that probably is related to the topics we have discussed already before in-depth analysis in examples. Going back to the method, if you can imagine that the lack of method is a problem, probably I want to propose something like a method to solve it. Unfortunately, the space of strategy is very diverse and complex. We have big dependency on, for example, company size, or the development maturity, or the development industry. So I'm just going to say that this don't expect a recipe and see steps to just cook your strategy. And if somebody's telling you that, probably get away from that. That's not something that will work. But hopefully I can give you some steps that you can think through and you can adapt to your own policies. So that's very good. A useful model even for this one. The first thing to jump into that model, I want to say is that I've been kind of focusing a similar direction in strategy. To be direction is a bit bigger than that. And our first direction is about the connection from vision to execution. And that requires three big artifacts or three big processes. Of course, as I was saying, you need to go with them in this particular order, but essentially what you need is a strategy that helps you clarify what are the strategic drivers that you need to build, leverage, and sustain over time. With that, you need to think about how you will sequence that over time, which usually tends to be a program. So these big opportunities, how you put them over time, how you construct them, how you think about the different time horizons. And finally, you have some talked about objectives, OKRs and different framework views, because it will give you a regular cadence in which you can check if you are actually going towards that direction that you're trying to achieve. So in order to make this more tangible and in the interest of time, we will talk only today about product strategy, but usually it's the most complex one, the one that, as Mark was saying, the one that is not present, and that we need to get better at. And when I talk about practical approach to product strategy, I usually mention that there are four big steps, four big things that you need to do in some way, as I said, to adapt to your own context, but four things that you need to think. The first one is the insights that you are basing your strategy on. The second one is how you select those insights. And then maybe more known space, how you create objectives around those. And finally, how you synthesis to make a memorable communication. We will go through each of them, but as you can see in the little boxes there are tools that can help you go through the steps. So this was saying it's a practical approach. We are not big in, for sure we will name the concepts, but there are practical ways to go through them. So let's start with the insights. And insights, at face value, is a word that you may have heard many times and may sound like this crazy market trend or some of these conditions that Steve Jobs simply cannot agree with how they use it in the future. I would say that that's part of the truth. And hopefully, if you are doing really some product discovery, for example, you will have faced insights day in, day out. Insights to me are these kinds of learnings that we have, so saying, as we do discovery, as we do research, that identify a problem, a tendency, an opportunity, new opportunity, that we believe that if we act upon them, will have a different, a big impact that we can change how the numbers of the inputs. And why insights are so important and why they put first in the strategy process, because many times we are basically following the last thing that crossed our mind, or the CEO idea, or the founder idea. And basically, when we are doing a strategy without insights, we are simply following each. And for sure, the founder can do that, and it is confirming the founder, it takes our company. But we as product managers, product leaders, we have a responsibility to make our strategy insights. And to make more specific, let me use an example. This is using tool called the resolution tree that we know is from Tesla Flores. It's mostly used for the discovery practices, but I like to use the top part for the strategy, strategy the insights in that without. One, because it helps us diversify our thinking about insights. And let's use a complete example to bring this company is a grocery delivery app. A few years ago, so it's not super present, but years ago, they have already established some market presence in a few cities, and they were thinking about how we expand our market share. And the third thing that they were trying to push and the strategy they were thinking about is, okay, we need to expand more stores. That's the easiest way to have to increase our market share in the cities we are currently working. And actually, you can see this kind of following this opportunity tree process, they have the increased customer sales, so the side outcome, they want to, the opportunity is capture more stores, and more concretely, the opportunity they had is that the onboarding of the stores was manual process, super slow, so they didn't have enough capacity to onboard more stores. They were thinking about, okay, how we change that process to make something easier and faster. But the thing that they were, thinking about is, okay, if we have that opportunity to increase the size, what other things we may pursue as well before something or before deciding that this is something we will pursue? And they come up with many different opportunities. For example, they say, okay, this then we increase the size, we can also increase the higher achieve a higher frequency and conversion rates. How we may do that? We might offer faster delivery. Now we have 4 hours delivery, how about we can we have, for example, we can do some membership loyalty programs like Framework, which is very popular now because many years ago, so it was a quite novelty at the moment. We help them increase the average order value. We may, for example, add the product, a sub vertical that we don't have done previous fresh products, so fruits and vegetables that we are not selling through the app, and that's a good topic that we can pursue. And by the way, we say it's a good topic we can pursue. When we are thinking about insights, we are trying to be, so we're saying this is a learning. So we're trying to be better learning and trying to have some way to justify insights, not that kind of bring some mediation effects. So for example, when we were saying fresh produce was the biggest sub-vertical in groceries that they didn't have currently, and accounted for almost 20% of all grocery sales. So for sure, it was a good indication that this was a good opportunity to pursue. And finally, on the same day, we made this global sites say, hey, if our intention is to increase market share, we can even extend to other verticals. So we can start thinking about what other verticals can be leveraged through the solutions they have currently. For example, restaurant is very, very popular, also popular topic for the delivery apps. So hopefully you can see now that in the insights phase, it's about understanding all the information we have, all the signals we are receiving, and trying to map this opportunity space in order not to follow the thing that goes on. But we need to jump to the next phase, which is actually how we select the winners. And one popular misconception of service selection is that we do basically what we do on the progressive backlog, which is doing an ROI analysis, so saying, hey, this is the most valuable opportunity, let's pursue that one. Actually, what we are trying to do, strategic thinking around prioritization and selection, what we are thinking about is what are the biggest strategic levers that, from our current standpoint, we can adapt and we can sustain some value over time. And maybe to make it a bit more concrete with an example, I would like to use the very early days of metrics. So you may know that metrics is a B2B company, it's a streaming company. And this is coming from a book called That Will Never Work from one friend that we found on metrics. And in this story, what they were doing was not only renting the case by email, but they were also selling the case by email. That was in the old days. And they were approached by also a very young Amazon at the point that had very successful book business, and they were trying to expand to the verticals, and they were thinking about acquiring metrics to jumpstart the selling business. So we know we know the story that will never happen, but when coming up with a deal, the founders of metrics realized that they will never be able to compete with Amazon in the retail side of the business, so selling business. Amazon will eventually come after that vertical and they will crash. So they decided to kill the selling into this part of the business to focus on the renting business in which they can create an advantage and actually sustain the advantage through the differentiated product over time and deliver a unique value to their customers. The interesting side note of the story is that at the moment they made a decision, selling this for them was more than 90% of the revenue. So this is the sort of strategic thinking which should be paid off. I think for sure this is very extreme example, not ours will be that way. But this is the sort of thinking we want to have when thinking about selecting for something. So how may we not? Then let's try to be practical because something very straight, statistical advantage parts is like some theory book. They are very practical ways to do it. For example, I like the 70-20-10 rule from Google, which says making sure that you are focusing on your core value position and also on extending it over time. But the one I want to present today, because it is known, is what I call strengthening the core. And what this tool says, and Apple is a very good example of that, is that you need to think about opportunities that would be successful due to the current business that you are doing. And on the other hand, by delivering them or by creating them, it will enhance your core business as well. So let's put another example, which is very easy. For example, let's say Apple Music. So by creating Apple Music, since Apple already has a business of advertisers that we have billions of devices in the streets, that business will become or will be very likely become successful because we will automatically go into the business. But on the other hand, by delivering this new service, we are making our core iOS systems more valuable. Why? Because we are adding to advisories out there on the street with already existing features. We are adding new capabilities and we are integrating them, and you can see your library, your music library, with devices, and so on. So we are adding more value to our core business. So again, this may sound a bit esoteric, but hopefully you can see that there's synergy between the new thing and trying to introduce and existing business. Going back to our groceries example, and for user context, somebody if you think about this company adding restaurant delivery, the connection to the core business is so clear. Yes, for sure, they have Vienna, they have the delivery, and they have really results. But basically, you can argue that the need is very, very different, and it also is the recipes, and the user segment is very quite different. So yes, there's a lot of cross-selling, so existing users might also want to purchase personalization, but the use case is quite different. Instead, if we are talking about then the cash flow selections or fruits and vegetables, for sure, the people buying groceries likely are interested in also buying these products. So by launching this, and the chance of this in being successful is quite high because I already have a very huge user base trying to buy some groceries. And on the other hand, by adding this new fresh product selection, I'm actually making the existing or those groceries buying experience more valuable because I'm covering more verticals, and I may attract customers that are more interested in the fresh products to our core business because for sure someone buying vegetables will also want to buy them or whatever. So there is a strong connection between these two worlds. So hopefully that explains some of the things you can do to make service reflection more useful, more valuable, and more expensive to do. So now we have done the two biggest parts. Now we are trying to come up with the final part. In the goal trace, I would say it's quite known. So we have selected some solution categories, and we need to say, okay, to make sure that we are actually delivering the service driver, we want to know what will be the measure of success. So we want to create a goal in it. But the other part that's I would say why you will know actually companies that don't create the strategy can create any goals. So that's something beautiful. Hopefully we are doing this after creating the strategy, after thinking those insights, we can come up with a goal that's realistic and actually will bring its value. But more important for this step is also stating the assumptions we are making to keep that goal. Why is this assumption puzzle going first? Because in the events missed and not done. And more importantly, because it's a very strong input for the execution side when you start validating these. So when you are making your strategic assumption clear and tangible, the teams that actually need to deliver on that strategy can afterwards figure out, hey, this is the assumption that behind it, how we can validate it. So that's it. Make a very good example to make it more tangible. So our opportunity, let's stick with first process. We know that it's a strong vertical, so we know that usually people will buy around 20 of the sub-vertical accounts for around 20% of all those intents. So our goal would be to increase the average order value by 10%. That's the goal. It's realistic. It's 20% markets. If we have that, that's good enough. But what assumption are we making? We are making the assumption that users will actually be interested in buying fresh produce on Apple. And why is that? Because, for example, I like to select my avocados, my bananas, in the right kind of maturity level, let's put it that way. So I'm not sure if I would like it. That's the assumption we're making, and for sure that's something that we can mandate before we do it. Because you make this mention that you say, hey, this is my strategy, and then from your strategy, you just go to, okay, let's build this thing. You're missing all the steps of discovery I usually use. So for sure, if we are stating the assumption very clearly, we can do a lot of tests like factor tests or different experiment, conscious experiments or result posts and one else. It's not a story talk, we can discuss that later. But basically, you are making the assumption very clear and you are giving a very strong hints for the teams that will actually deliver on this value position and how all the things they need to test first. And for sure, we can rank the risks. Very easy to say, for example, the failure probability for this one is a 3 because we have a unique data that people can be interested in this. But for sure, the impact of this phase is usually scale from 5. It's a high impact, so it's a 4 because it's will be for sure that we will not hit the ball if this assumption is not true. Okay. Hopefully, I convince you that we not only flows, we also need assumptions. It's a very important step because we're coming closer to formalizing the strategy. And in final phase, we want to make this strategy easier for communication. And the way I like to put this, or how I develop this, is with our Picasso draw this very famous book with a few lines. If you have ever seen some of Picasso's, these pictograms from Picasso from making this book, he actually made 16 drawings. And the first ones, he was actually not doing this because of simplifying the book. He was adding more details to it. He started with a somewhat realistic book, and in the next 4 diagrams, he adds more levels of details so that the picture actually becomes more clear. And only then, when he's by the 5th pictogram, he starts removing lines, making the book more simple, until he comes to this board that he can draw in very few lines and actually convey the same message for all. You see the whole even when it's a very simple picture. And with this strategy, we are mostly doing this. We start by on this inside phase and say, hey, you sit down with the insights, that's not true. Actually, you are going through multiple iterations. You are capturing more information, you're trying to understand what is happening, you're digging more data, you might do some research, you want to do interactions, you might be adding more reasons to select this selection driver. So all the time you are making your strategy more expand a bit more, and you can may add that with this kind of 50-page document that's explaining why this strategy is important. But even though you're there, what you need to do now is to make this into some sort of one-pager or very similar communication, because you want your goal at the end by doing this strategy is that teams can make everyday decisions that are aligned with the strategy. And for people to remember the strategy, hopefully you will have something simple. So let's go to a more complete example. Again, there is no recipe for how we can simplify this. I will give you one example, which is called the driver diagram. Very simple diagram saying, hey, this is my driver, this is the key result for the driver, these are the reasons of why this is important, and you may or may not have a supporting principle and some overriding utility of strategy. In our case, we're saying, hey, we want to add fresh values. Why? Because what we're trying to achieve, we are trying to achieve an increase of 10% in the other revenue. And this is important because it's a top-selling loss-making product is in our market. So in very few lines, you can describe the value strategy, and again, you have a reasoning or research behind it that may extend for 50 pages. But this is what the teams need to know day in, day out to actually make decisions that align with what you are trying to achieve. So again, no particular rule, but very simple step in which you are trying to make condense your strategy for consumption in everyday use. Welcome to them. Close there. So let's zoom out for a second. We discuss strategy and I discuss 4 steps. What I just want to state very clearly is that there are steps for each of these direction phases. As I'm saying, strategy, when coming to a roadmap, what you are trying to do is to break down these big drivers into more complete opportunities that we have sequence over time. There are tools and techniques to decide what's the right sequence. Also, when it comes to roadmaps, you are swinging on resources and how you are handling different teams, different results. So there are many things that happen there. Including the OKRs, and also, over if you are using OKRs or a shipping system, you know that there are things like, for example, the top-down versus bottom-up part. So there's also some steps that you need to go through. But essentially, when doing this, hopefully the things they mentioned that you are thinking about in the instance of selection can be actually the ones connected to the solution. And that's our main goal for the election phase. So in summary, great takeaways for you to consider. Going back to our first part of the presentation, direction is all about selecting and aligning and the right opportunities. It's about conveying the focus you want your product to have and the way in which you are trying to achieve your product vision. And that's why you do it first. You do it first because you are giving these supplemental tips. Most companies don't do it, and the key reason for them doing it is that they lack clear understanding of what service is and the measures to it, which hopefully clarify some of that. And finally, there is a practical aspect. So this is not science, this is not research for McKinsey out there. I'm sure there was some of these big firms, the consultancy firms that would come with the strategy. It's a new that, especially if the strategy you need to be based on your own insights that hopefully you are gathering. But my final thought is that this is the single most important thing that leaders can do to actually empower teams. There is the best way to live with context is to go through this process and give teams all this context that they need through these election process. And that's it for me on this. Actually, I will go right to this point. If you want the slides, you can download the slides from productdirection.com/events, and they have the right colors. So hopefully, if you touch your eyes, you can see another person there. And actually, more important, that if you find any of this useful, my only thing that I will ask you is that you go to productdirection.co, and in there you will have a strategy summary guide, just basically containing this content, and hopefully you can download it and give us some feedback if it's useful, or if there is any meeting that you will need to know. Other than that, you can also check out the podcast. Why? Because the podcast has real product leaders telling us about their challenges. That's super interesting. I learned a lot with that. So hopefully, if you are facing challenges, this will be very useful. And finally, you can check out the Amazon and post on the that's it. Yes.
Questions for Nacho? Any thoughts? Yes.
Yeah. One question that I would have. So one question I would have is that you guided us through the process now that you do, and mentioned also that should be the first thing you do. But I would be interested also in how often will you do it? What are triggers to kind of refresh it, do it again? What are some thoughts on that side? That's really nice.
So, when we think about strategy, one thing that we don't want to do is to change the strategy to written results and stop spinning strategy. And this is something I get a lot. Like I said, most companies don't have a strategy, but another similar problem is that, hey, my company change the strategy every quarter. See this one. So maybe put it in context. This depends a lot on the product maturity and the company size. Usually, the time frame is around 12 to 18 months. If there is a strong budget process in the company, that's usually annual, then annual is a very good time frame for as well. But moreover, that I put relation with strategy, roadmaps, and OKRs. For sure, OKRs are revised quarterly. You are revising the roadmap with the OKRs quarterly as well. Hopefully, they are not changing a bunch, but in case the OKRs are not being hit or there is any allowing, you will change it quarterly. And some roadmap updates if in case OKRs fail, may triggers this happen. So the review is usually quarterly, plus the planning. If everything goes well, it's the ones that concept in my solution. Thank you.
I have a question. Which people do you involve in for this and to what extent?
So ideally, you will involve as much people as possible. So I will mention very specifically the accountability part, but I usually say that the product leader is accountable for making sure that the products are achieved and that the product is, which doesn't mean that people kind of go into a room and create a strategy and have it over. There are maybe some guidelines about people decide which in value because the other opposite example is that we try to work 50 people, then we have priorities finances, we are not saying anything, so there needs to be some balance there. Good guidance is you need to involve for sure your counterparts from other disciplines, so the more important product development, are probably the tech lead and the UX lead, so whatever. And I'm talking about leads, but indeed I'm mentioning the level that is interesting for assessing the VP, the director, the whatever. So anyways, discipline leaders, and then also your principal stakeholders. And that's when it becomes something very dependent on the type of business you're running or the type of product you're running. For example, marketing for this product is so important, for people who sales is super important. Operations are important for instance, products like the delivery that we're mentioning, because as I is very operation heavy, but for XING doesn't make much sense. So that's where stakeholders is where it's really shine. But you really want to involve them. And maybe to make it more complete, there are usually two ways to involve these people. You can have a more active participation, in which you are saying, hey, we were having, for example, research, for example, we're trying to go through the research we have and use it together on the table. The other way, in case this is a big round and you want to sit everyone together, is to making sure that you are involved in the input research. So I usually say that there's a very strong you form personal relationship when you're having these one-on-one discussions, in which you're saying, hey, this is the coming update, what is your input for that? Or we are thinking towards these guidelines for your input. Because, for example, then you're talking about marketing, you probably are not the marketing experts, so you have this counterpart, which is the marketing expert, and can say, hey, the marketing channels are developing this way, but not serious enough. So this is a good way to have these sessions in which you gather input if you are not sitting them all of them in the same time.
So, in my experience, there's a tendency to overestimate the number of things you can focus on. So, how do you account for that? Because usually it's super optimistic. How we can focus on these 3 or 4 or 5 things? How do you account for them?
Yeah, I will say there is no golden rule. I will give you another example, which is even worse. When you are at a very high level, because I can focus on this thing, but this high level thing implies so many things in between that are very hard to account for. So there are two things that I try to do. First one is clarifying the strategy the right level. And when I say the right level is trying to make things as tangible as possible in a level in which they're that you cannot target. Even when you're example, say, hey, this year we'll focus on expansion. That's truly expansion. We'll launch new country. That's a good thing. That's a bit small. And if it's a delivery app, hey, this semester we'll launch 3 cities. So get as similar as possible, still remaining strategic and still remaining depending on the business and increasing funds. The second part is the roadmap. So when you're coming from the strategy, you have understanding of strategy, which is again on a certain level. But when you're coming to a roadmap, you're trying to break down these things like expansion into more tangible things, basically. So that's where we say, hey, in the roadmap, for sure you cannot have multiple focus. You don't want to have very focused in the roadmap. So when you have these themes in the roadmap, try to go through the process of the roadmap, but the same thing, you have 3 themes, that's kind of the link you can have. And when you are seeing when you're trying to add more, the same thing, I'm going to sequence that, and we want to do that further away in time.
Okay.
This is good.
This is, yeah, thank
Yeah, I
you.
have one more. One thing that I would also be interested in, you had one part about the strength in the core, right?
Yeah.
And how Apple also uses that. I would be just interested on your thoughts, how kind of you see the relation between that and also product bundling. So for example, the concept of having super fans and casual fans between different products and how you can utilize that by product bundling. Is it something you see in relation to that? I know it's less about the process and more about the specific strategy, but it would be interesting.
I need more input in the example that you were mentioning.
Yeah, so generally on the product bundling, right? Like the approach is usually that you would say you have one product or one feature also. You can also do it on a feature level where you would say you have super fans. That means you have a very clearly defined segment of customer users that really sort of like can't live without them, right? And you would like to usually broaden your market segment or your general reach, how many customers you can reach. You combine that in a bundle, so to say, with other products where the overlap of super fans is very low. The overlap of casual fans is very broad. And we're just curious because for me, it kind of sparked that a bit with the strength in the core. You would try to expand, so to say, the core offering, the core product, where you have super fans already with several others around it, where you would have separate super fans that would be also casual fans of the first product. And I was just curious if you had something you have seen in relation also to the strength in the core strategy, or if you have any other thoughts on concepts of strategy when we use
And to answer happy thoughts, particularly around in that way, it's relates to portfolio management, which is super interesting as well. One thing that you mentioned that the piece of the of how think about selling the core or other establishing business actually, and actually some about all this the expansion strategies, is when you focus on when you start thinking about different customer segments, which strategic decision you need to be for each customer segment. So also very interesting example. We have this super actually impossible to build. We call them weights. We have these customers that were very manufacturing accounting for 8% of sales for the produce. And this very interesting situation. Do we focus on either converting more weights or extracting more value from the weights, or do we focus in a more lower value position for these customers that are willing to pay a lot, but we may still see a value from them? Another example is a company called Germany, which is a company in Switzerland. Actually, I remember this because I have a very sort of program this. They are notes taking up for meetings. Actually, probably everything if I said that. They manage kind of these meeting notes. And they have this very interesting trade-off because for sure, when you're using very important software to manage meeting notes, this needs to be a very important thing. So their core customer currently are these C-level meetings, which have more board meetings and sessions very important, very well documented here. And they say, hey, for sure, that's 1% for the entire program this, because for sure there are meetings happening at any level in the company. And they are having this trade-off saying, hey, do we focus more on them and to capture more of this market by setting more of their needs, or do we want to go to different levels? And essentially what you're saying was tremendous because the problem they have is that the needs of those segments super and they if they probably not one product, maybe super overload the product for some segments. So they need to like this. So I don't know how to put it with the core system, but if you think about expansion strategies, having this covered in the portfolios, and then it's only one product and from our needs, or we need to split them into different products. That's very interesting.
I am working to develop our servers for coffee shops, and there's two products that can complement each other. But I've kind of put it off development because I can't decide between one or the other. It's quite frustrating because I can kind of work out experience in my head and don't have a budget to do marketing research. I don't go about deciding on something like that.
What are the product spots?
The one wherever it's social networking.
Okay. I would say discovery is quite different on the products. So when I was going back to the insights parts, the insights I remember like very broadly as any value you have. And when you're thinking about launching a new product, there are a couple of things that you probably want to understand. Which is what's the customers at least, what's the need, what was channel to do, and the channels in which I will feel and deliver this offer or this benefit. So when you're going through that, then probably the one or the other not necessarily is a strategy decision for like portfolio decision, but when you are saying one or the other, you first need to understand these elements, saying, okay, this is the market segment, this is the need, and this is the channel. And you want to say, okay, and so this is the user, the segment, the user segment, which is understanding the speaker. I want to understand the channel, how cheap or how attainable is this delivery channel for me. And on the need, you want to understand if this need is what's usually called painkiller versus bitter. So painkiller is something the user is very frustrated one, so they need a solution, or something that's more like a benefit, because painkillers are easy to solve. So that's probably a framework against on the side position. But that's an initial input that you want to do in the initial discovery from the insights.
I like that.
So the other one, Vietnamese. Yeah, thank you to that.
Okay. Another question.
I was wondering at the beginning you showed the diagram where you had discovery, delivery, and the front with different direction. I was wondering how to apply it, and if you really meant that this is sequentially going, almost like that, like used to go, I don't know, doing track discovery and you put this first. Or how is this meant in practice?
For sure, it's not sequential, but you need to diagram it some way. So it's for sure a mess. Maybe one point to phrase it, that was going to ask before about the time periods for strategy. So usually you are doing constantly discovery and delivery. Discovery is a great input for strategy because you are doing up these research learnings. And delivery is also very important part because you are having outcomes that will inform the future. OKRs or if you're under delivering or over delivering on some KPIs. So essentially, what I usually do is to say in the quarterly reviews, we are summarizing all these insights that are coming from this continuous discovery and delivery, and we are trying to say these are the important risk decisions we can make based on these new learnings. So it's more on a quarterly basis, based on the summary that you gather over time, and it's very much tied to the roadmap definition, so the roadmap updates. And one thing that we going back now down to concrete artifacts we have map of our opportunity space, pretty much like the resolution tree, saying, okay, these are the current the understanding of the things that we want to achieve and the opportunities we have identified to achieve them. And what we do in a quarterly basis, like we're now tackling this opportunity space. And what happens is that when you go and say interview users or explore the opportunity space, you find out, oh, I didn't think about that, that's another opportunity. And then on a regular basis, when doing these continuous processes, you update your opportunity space. So when you come with these quarterly reviews, say, hey, these are the newcomers to opportunity space, or the things that we anticipate because the always direction will be, hey, we thought this was a good opportunity, but given these new findings, it's going to be more. So you constantly are updating this opportunity space that you will view on a quarterly basis. And this is how it is in this
Another question?
I think I just have that. That's something new one.
There's the premise that many companies don't have this proper strategy in place, right? In your explanation before, actually, on my first question, that you need to have certain stakeholders on board to actually come up with the proper strategy. how do you get the thing going? Like, it's time investment to get this first strategy effort done. How do you make a case for that?
So one, I will say that this is the key area of responsibility of the developer. So I will put that way around. If as a product leader, you are spending a lot of time in activities that are not coaching your product team, improving your packaging, which is and establishing, then you need to kind of think you what are you spending time. Not very often that make it clear, but many times product leaders are either kind of boring into more reporting activities or other things like consuming time. And those are the things that probably you need to review in your own agenda, see and going to cancel those or proceed out to understand the content. Because what I'm going to say, if you don't have strategy, our let's say you're a product leader, I mean to a company, say, hey, oh, you're a product manager, you're a product manager, you're something wrong, or realizing you're only taking the employee strategy, you are responsible for wasting the time trying to change things. So again, as I was saying, as a product leader, that's your responsibility. So you should be starting. And you should have the time because it's your key areas of development. If you're not having the time, maybe it's because your role descriptions are clear or there are other tasks, but for sure it's something that you invest in. And if thinking along the line of, okay, how do I convince others to join me? I think that the time commitment by Gary and what you usually do is to start very simply. So let's say we don't need an 18-month strategy super watch, but we are for sure starting some things out that have some strategy. But they don't just what I'm saying, companies don't have strategy. It's not our companies that idiots and running away. And companies usually have some reason for the other things. So you start saying, okay, let's write down our system strategy, very close, very based on what you already know, and let's formalize that. And when formalizing that, you are really setting up the artifacts and the cadence is what we get is for review also. So you are, for example, setting up your first opportunity space, and then we can keep improving your opportunity space as we go through that. And when this 6-month period is over, you probably gain some experience by doing so and by convincing others to join you. And you have very strong ground. Say, let's now be a bit more aggressive. Let's be a bit more pervasive. Another approach. And one thing also I didn't mention is big part of that is that many companies don't have a vision. So it's very important to have that vision or customer oriented saying that was the problem when solving the war and why we should do it. And also so we need to say, hey, that's a vision. And it's something that many people will join forces to create because no one wants to be left out of that. And once you have that, hey, a way to realize the vision, let's bring that together. So you kind of create momentum. That's those
Maybe one last question. Is there any other question?
Everyone's saying.
Okay.
So continue questions over pizza. So yeah. Thank you very much to Nacho. Thanks to you guys if we make this product tank, of course. Please keep up to date. We might also change product direction from pizza to maybe another space. So yeah, keep your eyes on that. And yeah, thanks very much for coming. Thank you, Nacho, again. Thank you, Newer, for hosting us. And see you next time.